So I arrived at Valentano for my 7th day of my Abbraccio del Lago. Yesterday I found this statue of Mary standing on what seemed to be a dragon. But I've been doing some homework and investigate a little bit about this, and what was striking was that the statue of Archangel Michael and the statue of Mary look so similar. They were both standing on a sphere of blue, like they were standing on the earth, and Archangel Michael was standing on a dragon, very clearly, and at the first sight I thought that Mary was standing on a dragon too. But then when I walked up to Valentano, a snake trail crossed my path, and it wanted to tell me something. What I found out is that Mary isn't standing on a dragon, but she's standing on a snake. But why? Still the question. Because the dragon and the snake are both symbols of the feminine and of the great goddess. When you look at the Bible, we can see that both statues originate at a story that's in the Bible, and the story of Archangel Michael defeating the dragon we can find in the book of Revelations, the last book of the Bible, and the story of a snake and the feminine we find in Genesis. We're back at the beginning where Eve eats from the apple because the snake tells her, and then the Lord tells the snake and Mary that the snake will crawl on the ground and that mankind will crush his head, and that the snake will crush the feet of mankind. And this statue isn't Eve, it's Mary. And Mary is seen by a lot of Catholic people as the new Eve. Like she has overcome evil, and that's why she crushes the snake. So that's an interesting story. And today when I'm walking around here at Valentano and will descend down to the lake again, I will find out if I can continue this story. This is the main church in Valentano. It's San Giovanni Evangelista. It's also dedicated to St. John, but this time the one who wrote a part of the Bible. And it's very interesting, but because in here there's a lot of male energy, which you can expect from the name of the church. But when I went inside, there's this statue of Mary as a centerpiece, and it's a beautiful one, but she is looking so sad. She's looking you right in the eye, as if she's telling, "Please help me, it's unfair." And in front of that statue there was a lot of feminine energy. Here in Valentano, in front of the church of the Santa Croce, there's a statue of a Madonna. And I just found out that she is also standing on a snake. When we look closer, you can see the snake and the apple next to the snake. It represents clearly the story we know from Genesis. So the dragon and the snake were killed in the Bible. But why? Why were they killed? And why did they get this image of not being the great goddess, but being evil and the devil? What happened? So to answer that question, why this is written in that way in the Bible, and why the feminine and these symbols of a dragon and a snake were demonized and the female power was made inferior. And I think it has to do a lot with literacy, and to understand that I need to explain a couple of things, and I start with the first one, and that is when people become literate, when children learn how to read and how to write at school when they are 6 years old, something happens in their brain. Because if you want to learn how to read and to write, you have to use your left brain mainly. And when you want to play and draw and fantasize and all the things you do when you're a toddler, you use your right brain for the most of the time. So becoming literate has a big impact on how we use our brain. But what happened then when mankind started to read and write for the first time? Before that, they had images and they told each other stories, and they used their right brain mainly. And there was a big difference between the brain of female, who were nurturing and gathering and baking bread and making art, and the males who most of the time were hunting and killing. They both had their own ways to cope with those things they had to do. And females developed the right brain, the right part of the brain to be able to do all those things, and the men developed their left brain, the left side of the brain, to be able to do what they had to do to survive in the world. So there's a big difference between right and left brain, and what that has to do with the Bible, I will tell you a bit later. And meanwhile, I'm walking down to the lake again, figuring out how I can tell you this story of the circumstances in which these old texts of the Old Testament of the Bible originated, and what it means to us today. So imagine that at a certain point in time, mankind started to write, to use characters, a small number of them, and put them in different settings to create words, and then creating sentences. To be able to do this, they used their left brain only, and it had a huge impact on how the brains of these people developed. The first 5 books of the Bible, also called the Torah, are one of the oldest scriptures that we know, and they were written, we're not really sure when, but most investigators think that they were written in the time of when the Israelites were wandering around in the desert with Moses, and they started writing, and they started to teach every single member of their clan to read and write. And they invented something so great and so special that they started venerating it. They made it their God, because the God of the Bible is the God of the Word. And as you can read in those first 5 books in the Bible, and especially in the commandments that Moses got directly from God on Mount Sinai, they were not allowed to make images. And all the pagan people that were living around them still worshipped the great goddess and made images of her. So the stories that you can find in Genesis are about keeping distance, making a big gap between a male god that rules and that shows himself through the word, and the goddess that was venerated through images by the pagan people around the Israelites. And as we can read in this book of Leonard Slane, that's called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, this the impact of becoming literate and using your left brain far more than your right brain has directly consequences with the way you look at female creation power, the goddess, and female values. If you are interested, it's a very long story. I cannot tell it right now here, but I hope I made you curious. Just get the book and read the story. It helped me to put everything in another perspective and to understand and be able to answer the question, why has the great goddess disappeared? So, I arrived at Monte Bisenzio, and this is the place where we will meet again tomorrow. And then we will talk further about the feminine and the masculine here around the lake, because this mountain is the most beautiful archaeological site of the Etruscans that's here around the lake. And I will show you something very special tomorrow. See you tomorrow!